This episode, I'm with Ken Shamrock, the GOAT of mixed martial arts.
10 years old, I get stabbed, strong arm robbery, end up in juvenile hall. The only thing that saved me was the idea that when I finally got into a group home, they tapped into my anger, my frustration, and be able to generate it towards the sport. I caught on quick, I learned fast, I was strong as an ox. I could do backflips, I could do the splits, I was real flexible. I weighed about 225 pounds.
Doing backflips.
Yep. He grabs me, boom, I catch him with the knee. All of a sudden I feel, wham! I take this shot in the groin, and I got a steel cup on. And I take for a minute, and all of a sudden it just like got worse and worse, and I'm trying to fight it.
Creeps up on you.
Yeah, and all of a sudden my breath is gone, and I dropped. I turned around and just turned like this, like away. It was taking my breath away.
Everyone wants to be great, but only few actually get there. And I'm on a mission to find out what all the greatest have in common. I've traveled tirelessly to find, sit down, and talk with GOATs, people that are arguably the greatest of all time at what they do. Sales, marketing, advertising, business, podcasts, branding, you name it. The way they do things may be different, but they all seem to see the world the same way. To them, success is not only achievable, but inevitable. And we'll get inside their heads as they share their expertise with me each week. My name's Mike Arce, and this is The GOAT Show. This episode is sponsored by Agency G.O.A.T. Starting a digital agency was definitely one of the best decisions I've ever made. Building it, however, was a lot more challenging than expected. I always wish someone just gave me a roadmap that I could follow and let me be a fly on the wall at a successful agency so I could just see how it's all done. Agency G.O.A.T allows you to do just that. Stop playing small and visit agencyGSD.com to learn how to help hundreds of clients get it to 7 figures and be extremely profitable along the way. Again, go to agencyGSD.com. Also, sponsored by Loud Rumor. If you own a fitness studio, cryotherapy, or massage business, there is no company in the industry better at generating high-quality leads than Loud Rumor. In just the last 2 years, Loud Rumor has worked with nearly 1,000 fitness and wellness companies and won ranking Arizona's Ad Agency of the Year in 2017. Getting more paying members in the door can be tough. Let Loud Rumor do the heavy lifting and get new people in your doors every day. Go to loudrumor.com and learn more. Hello everybody, I'm Mike Arce and welcome back to another episode of The GOAT Show, where we interview people that are arguably the greatest of all time at what they do. And today, I'm here with American mixed martial artist, UFC Hall of Famer, pro wrestler, Ken Shamrock. Ken, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. GOAT, huh?
Oh, I mean, that's you,
GOAT.
for sure. In fact, you know, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I was going to get to that later, but let's just get to it now while we're talking GOAT. You were tagged with the nickname, the world's most dangerous man.
Yes.
So when did that start? How did that start? Because it wasn't like just some kid down the block. ABC News tagged you with that.
Right.
So how did that kick off and it just stuck?
Yeah, it was an interesting time because I was already fighting over in Japan, and I was already starting to get a reputation just in the small areas of the mixed martial arts crowd.
Right.
UFC kicked off, and so I started going in that, and I started making a name for myself there. Well, during that time, ABC came out with this special, The World's Most Dangerous, food, places, things,
I remember that.
Animals, all that stuff, right? And so they came up with this world's most dangerous person,
right?
Man. Now I know they went through a bunch of guys, and I remember at the time, I think I was a champion over in Japan, I was a champion here in the US, and
right.
I thought to myself, because of the way the media was going, it was almost like they were portraying us like we were barbarians, like we were guys that came out of prison and just killed people. There was no skill involved. These guys just threw them in the ring and they fought each other like chicken fights, right?
Like blood sport.
Yeah, right. So it wasn't really, at the time, we were really trying to fight that image.
Right.
So when they came out with the special, it was like, I need to know what you guys plan to do. I want to know what your purpose is. What are you trying to make me look at? Because I had 4 kids at the time.
Sure.
And it's like, I don't want to be made like some animal and have it on mainstream TV and say, what is your purpose? And so when they actually showed it to me, they said, well, first we're going to start the show off by having my youngest boy, and he was going to be in my wrestling shoes, standing in my wrestling shoes with big old boxing gloves on his hands with headgear.
Okay.
And he was only about 5 years old, so he's going to stand in the corner, and they're going to take a light and shoot a shadow on him, so it looked like it was a giant on the wall. So then they were going to shoot the wall and actually pan over, and then hit the shoes, and then pan up the leg and up the glove, and then all of a sudden pull back, and there's just a little kid standing there.
Right.
The little kid runs out and starts punching me, bang, 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 and go down, and boom, there it is.
So they incorporated the kids.
What they were doing was they were humanizing me. They were humanizing us and who we were. They put a face on us. Right. They were literally saying, hey, these are the guys that are in there fighting, and they're no different than anybody else in this world today. We're not from prison. We're not living in the streets and trying to kill people. We are human beings just like everybody else. They literally humanized us, and from that point on is where things started to change for the world of no holds barred and MMA.
Wow, so it's kind of crazy. Getting tagged with the name,
right,
the world's most dangerous man, actually made you look more
human,
civil,
right?
Right.
You're more human. Like I'm like everybody else. I just do this for a job, but outside of that, I'm no different than anybody else.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So the cool thing about this show, people that watch this and listen to this show is there are people that have ambitions to be not just great, but the greatest at what they're going for, right? And so we like to get inside the minds of the people that have been able to go through that journey and achieve that level. So I kind of want to take it back. Obviously there's things we want to get to. You're one of the most popular, you're like a rock star in your day, right? And you set numerous pay-per-view records.
Hair.
Yeah, without the long hair. You set tons of pay-per-view records. So where'd you grow up? Like when you were a kid, what was life like?
Well, that's a long story, and I'll try to shorten it up. I was born in Macon, Georgia.
Okay.
And at the age of 5 years old, I had two older brothers, and it was 6 and 7, so we were like right in line. My biological mother was basically a go-go dancer, so she was never home, and we were always left home alone, and we'd have to steal food out of trash cans. And
when you say we, how many
me
brothers?
and my two brothers.
Okay.
Yeah. So we would, we'd have to pretty much raise ourselves, and we got into all kinds of fights and different things like that at the age of 5, right? So she finally meets somebody, and then they end up picking up and moving to Napa, California. Okay. Well, once we get to Napa, California, same thing happens. I still have the attitude, still have the reputation. I get in trouble. 10 years old, I get stabbed, strong arm robbery, end up in juvenile hall. Wow. The only thing that saved me was the idea that when I finally got into a group home, they tapped into my anger, my frustration, and be able to generate it towards the sport. And so that's really what moved me towards fighting. Was first it was football and wrestling, kept me out of trouble long enough for me to be able to go to college, be able to go out there, and then all of a sudden fight stuff comes up over in Japan. So I was able to go over there and do well over there, and then UFC pops up and bang. So for me, it was really about somebody really taking the time to look at me and say, hey, you're frustrated, you're angry, let's generate that into something positive.
So that's the summary.
Yeah.
Let's break down some of those details. So the stabbing, how old were you when that happened?
10.
You were 10 years old when you got stabbed?
Yeah, I was behind a 7-Eleven, and it was in Napa. And I ran away from home, I was living in a car. It was probably about 6 weeks I had been gone. Stores, robbing stores. And
you were, at 10 years old?
Strong arm robbery, that's how I was getting my money, robbing stores, strong arm robbery, with a knife.
So you were like cash, not walking out with candy. You were getting
cash. I would take the windows off the stores, the putties of the old days, they'd take the window off, they had all those wires stuck to them. I would go up and take all the putty off the window and take the whole window out and leave all those wires hooked up and go in and steal all the important stuff like Coke, candy, potato chips, all the healthy stuff.
Yeah.
And this was a young age. I was 10 years old.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't have anybody raising me.
Yeah.
So for me, it was really a way of just survival.
Right.
And even
you had to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's like either that or I lay down and die because there ain't nobody else taking care of me.
Right. And it's not like you have like paths that you can follow. You're 10. I have an 11-year-old. I can't imagine him thinking of something.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's about the education of a 10-year-old. How do I know where the paths are? Yeah, there's paths out. People go, well, you could have turned yourself, oh, you could have gone here and you could have gone to that person's house. Somebody could have. As a 10-year-old, you don't know that.
Right.
All you know is there's nobody there taking care of you. I got to do for myself.
Right.
So it wasn't like I was educated that I could have thought, oh, I just go to my neighbors, or I'll go to, this, because there's places for help. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you don't think about that.
No.
So now, when you were doing this by yourself, or did you have your brothers with you?
No, my brother's actually, one's doing life in prison now, and the other one's not doing well, just all the drug use and stuff. So I was separated from them at 10 years old when I went into placement, because I was in placement from the time I was 10 years old until I was 18. I never lived at home, and my other two brothers was the same way. Okay. They were in and out of California Youth Authority, and same road.
Sure.
So I don't even really know them.
Yeah. Wow. So you said, finally you were able to get into a place where you can channel all that into a sport that obviously made you super successful, very well known. What age? Like, how did that happen? How old were you? Where were you when finally somebody approached you with, Ken, let's take all this crazy stuff you can do, and let's turn you into an athlete.
I actually have a story that helped me understand what sports could do for me. And because before that, I was an angry kid.
Right.
But I so happened to have athletic ability.
Yeah.
So when I first started going to school, like I said, age of 10, I was in and out of juvenile hall and group homes and youth authority, all kinds of stuff. So I wasn't able to really even go to school.
Sure.
So when I first got to a place at 13 years old, it was a Shamrock boys home. After failing 7 or 8 different homes and in and out of juvenile hall, I ended up at the Shamrock boys home. Now, my PO, probation officer, said, this is your last chance. If you do not do well at this home, then you're going to prison. California Youth Authority, that's where you're going to spend the rest of your time. I was like, I understand the kind of kid I was, right?
Sure.
It was like, well, you're threatening me with 3 square meals in a bed? Yeah. It's like, okay, that's not going to hurt me. So, and all the guys that are in there are people I know.
Right.
So it wasn't like they were really threatening, and that was the ignorance of a lot of probation officers. They didn't understand that stuff didn't scare those kids.
Sure.
So as time went on, I ended up at Shamrock Boys Home. I remember first walking in, and it was like this $1 million home. I'd never seen anything like this, not even on TV. And it was like, I'm walking in, I'm looking at all these open beam ceilings and pool tables and video games, and first thing I thought of was like, what can I steal?
Really?
Because I ain't staying.
You've been trained to think that, right?
No, I didn't belong. I walked into this place and I'm like, man, I don't belong here. No, I don't belong. I felt uncomfortable. I said, I'm not wearing a tie, and I'm not sitting at dinner with a tie. It almost felt like I was going to be in this boys' home or something where we're going to make you wear ties and sit proper and say yes sir, no sir. And it was I ain't staying. And that was in my mind when I went in. Well, Bob Shamrock, I remember when I first walked in the door, and I came in with 2 other kids. And I remember the first thing he did, and all the other group homes we went to, they would always send us with the kid, one of the senior kids there, and they would take us and we just hang out. Well, whoever was at the house would then sit down with the probation officer. Well, Bob, it's hard for me to say that because he's my dad, right? So
you say like, dad.
Right, it's like this before. So he came to us, the 3 kids, sat us down at this bar where it had ice cream and sodas and candy, and it was at this bar. And sat us down, and he had our files that he had gotten from the probation officer, and he picked the files up, and he said, this is your file. And he put it down, and he says, you have a new start. He says, you're not a number, which everywhere we went, we were a number.
Sure.
He says, Ken, you have a temper. And he says, you guys have drug problems. He says, if Ken goes out and he has a beer, or maybe he smokes a joint, and he comes home, yeah, he's going to get in trouble. But not as much trouble as you two, because you guys have the problem. You're the ones that need help. So if you go out and do that, you're going to dig a pool in the wintertime, and you're going to work your tail off.
So everyone's punishment was based on
who they were.
Wow.
Which I'd never been to a home where everybody was taken as individuals and everybody was dealt with the way what their problems were.
Right.
So immediately I was like, whoa. I was like, that's kind of weird. Well, then when we got done, and because of some of the stuff that happened to me, I didn't like physical contact. I didn't want anybody to touch me.
Right.
So when he got up, he was always hugging everybody. And I remember he hugged the other 2, and they were kind of like, whoa. And then he went to hug me, and I was like, whoa. I said, I ain't going there.
Right.
So,
have you been hugged before that?
No, that's the crazy thing. I had never been hugged, at least unless somebody was trying to take advantage of me. I was never hugged in an affectionate way. My mother, I never got a hug. I don't ever remember getting a hug from my mom. I didn't know my father at that time. So I was never really hugged in the right way, ever. So that physical contact had never happened.
Yeah.
So when that was coming, it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, that's a bad experience. I don't want that. So for a long time, mentally, with the nice house and all the good things going on, I had my radar up, like there's something wrong here, because I don't belong here, and I didn't do anything that was good for me to be here.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like it's a resort and we're going to come here and spend some time for vacation. Man, I got placed here. So there's something wrong. You know, this ain't right. You don't send bad kids to places like this.
Yeah.
Well, after about 3 months, and I hadn't run away yet, I realized that this was a place, and I started thinking in my mind, like, you know what? I think this is something that I want to hang on to. All of a sudden now, I started feeling like I don't want to leave. You know, everywhere else I went, I was always ready to go.
Now it's home.
This felt like I had a second, and this was unconsciously, right? It wasn't something I was like, as a kid, I was smart enough to go, wow, this is a great place. Yeah, we can do all these things. No, it was unconsciously, I felt good inside.
You didn't realize till later that those thoughts were starting to transpire.
Right, because I still didn't have the trust.
Sure.
You know, even though I was feeling good, you know, it was still like I was waiting for the hammer to drop. You know, where's it at? I know it's coming. And so that was that way all the way through until I actually got adopted. But it was really almost like it was too good to be true. I mean, I didn't do anything to deserve this, you know, so I know this can't be real.
That's crazy. So now you're in here, and now so you start developing a family essentially, right? Not just with Bob, but with the other people that you're living with. So when did you start getting into like serious fighting? Like, wow, okay, I can do this. This is a sport I'm better than
at
most
5
people
years old?
Well, that was a different thing. Like, you weren't thinking, I'm going to be fighting on a stage. I'm going to be doing. So when did that first happen where you or somebody mentioned to you, like, just so you know, this is bigger than just everyone. Like, you and them are different. You're special. You can do bigger things than this.
Well,
that had to kick in at one point, right?
Well, I think when I was in the home, we had boxing matches. We also had fights that when we had this pool that was in the back that we dug.
Okay.
And it was a pit. And anybody that had a disagreement, if they both agreed, would jump in the pit and they would settle their differences.
Now, gloves?
Gloves on.
Okay, so it wasn't bare knuckle?
No, no, that would shut the house down. But it was for us, no other home was able to do that. And if he wasn't so successful, they wouldn't let him do it either, right? I mean, because that's something that they wouldn't allow kids to fight each other.
Right.
But because he had such success with the kids, and none of the kids wanted to leave.
Right.
And a lot of that had because if you were both willing to fight, we got to settle it. Right. So it was probably 6 months, and I was 14. I turned 14 years old. Halfway through that, you know, midway to 15, I ran the house. I literally, there was 17-year-old kids who had peer counselors that were 18. And because of that, I guess that switch I had, whereas like when someone set me off, there wasn't even a thought. It was like I was on them like white rice.
You're like, let's go to the pit.
No, not even that. I was on them like white rice right then and there.
Really?
And then it would get separated, and that's how all the fights started, was usually the confrontation. And they separated them, and they say, okay, put the gloves on. You both want to fight, put the gloves on. Because what they didn't want to have happen was some guy to jump on somebody, start punching him, and everybody pull him off, and he got the better of him, right? So what they did was they pull him off and say, okay, put the gloves on. And one of them would say, I don't want to fight. Well, yeah, but you hit him. So why would you hit him if you don't want to fight? So basically what was happening was giving the other guy the satisfaction, the one that got cheap shotted, satisfaction of this guy cowering down. So it dissolved the problem.
Without having to do any more physical.
Well, then he's got to look over his back, and you know, this guy's going to get him. Because he did jump him, and he's got to get him, and especially if he's going to lose face with the other guys.
Yeah.
So he's going to get him. So the best way to diffuse that is make this guy go, well, put the gloves on. And if this guy says, no, I ain't fighting him, this guy's pretty much,
almost worse
he's
than getting
afraid
hit.
of him, right? He's cowering, right? So the other boys are going, this guy's a coward.
So did it get to the point eventually where just nobody wanted to fight Ken?
Yes, yeah, and not so much in the boxing, but when we got into the pit, because the pit was gloves on, and you could take them on the ground and beat them on the ground. But straight boxing that we would do in the living room, you know, I hit hard, but there was some guys, there was probably one guy there that was usually a good boxer, and we always went toe to toe, so it was pretty even. But as far as the straight fight, nobody wanted to mess with me.
Yeah, okay. So now when did it turn into, we're making this an official thing, we're taking it out of the house, we're putting you in the ring or an octagon, right? Whatever it started becoming, it probably started out in a ring, right? When did that happen?
I'd have to say tough mans. I went to play college football.
Okay. What'd you play?
Linebacker.
Okay.
Yeah, and linebacker, great place for a guy with temper.
Yeah.
I would have to say it was a tough man's because I was going to college, and there was this tough man that came to town, and so everybody was about these tough men. All the bad guys in town were going to go. This was in Redding, California. All the tough guys in town were coming in, and of course nobody knew me. I just come in to play some ball, and I was bouncing at Doc's Sky Room, and nobody knew me, right? And even one of the bouncers there was doing the contest too, and nobody really knew me yet. It was shortly after they did. So we go do this at the fairgrounds, and I knocked everybody. 16-ounce gloves. I broke one guy's ribs, but I knocked everybody out. Wow. And that was my initiation into people realizing who I was.
Wow.
But that was really. And this was boxing, wasn't the wrestling and all that, which was I was pretty good at wrestling.
Yeah.
This really, I think, especially in my dad's mind, and not so much mine, because in my mind it was just, I had always done it. But I don't think it was really realized to my dad or to people, because then people started talking, like, man, that dude is something.
Right.
And so it really didn't start to resonate with me until I started seeing people say, dude, that's Ken Shamrock, man. That's that dude did the tough man.
People start coming up to you,
yeah,
shaking
and I was
your hand.
like, okay, you know, that's cool. But then I just started realizing, like, yeah, you know what, you know, maybe I am pretty tough.
Okay, cool. So now you realized that you're tough enough, you've got enough skill, enough power, enough intellect, right? Because you have to know what to do, when to do it, right? There's a science to the sport, instinct. Yeah. To go ahead and fight at more than just the tough man. Now you go into the pro level, which that became a different game, right? Once you got into the UFC and Pride and all that. Those guys, now you're meeting guys like you. Right. Now you're meeting a bunch of other guys out there that really have the skill, they have the instinct. So what kind of training, like what did your days look like when you were at your peak, your GOAT level, right? What were you at on a daily basis? What would your morning look like, your day, your training schedule, all that?
Well, when I was over in Japan is really when I first started my training. UFC wasn't born yet.
Okay.
I was living in the dojo over in Japan.
You lived in the dojo?
Yes.
Okay.
And then shortly after that, I got an apartment in Japan because I was staying up there in between fights. Every month we fought.
Okay.
And then 1 month I'd go home and 1 month I'd stay.
Okay.
And because there was nothing in the U.S. to train with, when I tried to get somebody to train with me, I say, hey, a boxer says, I'm going to take you down. I'm like, no, what do you mean take me down? It's like, I couldn't explain it to him. When I tell a wrestler, hey, take me down, I'm going to punch you. And I say, what? I was like, I ain't doing it. So I couldn't get anybody to train with me.
Right.
So I had to stay over in Japan and start trying to sharpen my skills because I really, when I first saw it, I said, man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so training in the dojo, I think at that point in time, I started realizing in a short time that I was dominating the dojo over there and staying there and dominating the dojo with the guys that were already skilled.
Yeah.
It was probably, I would say 6 months in, I was literally the man over there.
Really?
In 6 months. So I caught on quick, I learned fast, I was strong as an ox. I could do backflips, I could do the splits, I was real flexible. I weighed about 225 pounds.
Doing backflips?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how many hours did you train? I mean, to go from that to 6 months, right, of becoming the man, and these guys, were you out working people? Or yeah? So what was the work, what were they putting in, what were you putting in?
It was almost the same work ethic, but I just went hard. It was almost like, you know, sometimes I had to slow down. It was like, you know, we're going easy, and it was like my easy was hard.
So they wanted to spar.
And I was fighting.
Yeah.
You know, because I didn't have, and I don't even as I got, you know, a little bit more experienced and a professional, I still didn't have a gauge. Right. It was almost like I would fight, and even my fighters would say that we fought when we trained.
Right.
Because when you were talking about the no holds barred, when you're talking about the bare knuckle, there was no program. There was no program to train for that. So basically what we did is went in there and we just fought. And we would go at it, and then we would do our techniques later. Not literally knocking people out, but we would hit.
Yeah.
And we literally fought in there just to prepare for those no time limits and no rules. And that's
be
what we
exhausted
did
during that time.
Yeah,
too.
but it was taking the fear factor out of not knowing what it's like to go into a no holds barred fight. Right. So if we could do that in the gym and implicate what we would actually do in a fight, and do it in the gym and do it enough times without cutting somebody, without breaking anything, still hitting them without really turning it over, it's taken away from that unknown and that fear about a bare knuckle fight. Because that really was, people were beat before they ever got in the ring because it was something they've never experienced.
Yeah.
So they were afraid walking into the ring to fight because it was something they hadn't experienced before other than in a street fight. But a street fight, usually they're fighting somebody that isn't skilled. Right. So now all of a sudden they're walking in with all these guys and they're all ready to fight. It's bare knuckle, it's a street fight. And anything can go and you could be dead, you could get killed.
Right.
And half of them got beat before they ever got to the ring.
Yeah. Well, now most athletes, you could ask them, do you remember the game or the fight where you can go back and say, that was my peak. That was my best. I was absolutely, as far as like combination of instinct, intellect, timing, speed, strength, all that. So whether it was UFC, a certain fight, Pride, if you can go back in time right now and put yourself into the most elite Ken Shamrock, what fight was that?
It wasn't a fight. It was a year.
A year, okay.
Because what we did was we had a tournament, and it was a 16-man tournament, 2-day tournament. But you had to qualify. And that qualification was we fought every month for a year.
Okay.
And then you would be ranked in that tournament on how many fights that you won.
How old are you at this time?
29.
Okay.
Yeah, 29 or 30, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So I had won all my fights. So I was ranked number 1. Okay. So I got the number 1 seed.
Okay.
And we had a 2-day tournament. So the first day we fought twice. We fought a guy from Australia and another guy from Brazil. And no, actually I fought a guy from Australia and I fought Maurice Smith.
Okay.
And then the next day I fought both guys from Japan. In the finals I fought Yamada, and then in the semifinals I fought Funaki, which was the number 1 Japanese guy.
Okay.
And so to me that was really my peak, because it was like every month we were fighting, and I was fighting guys from all over the world.
You were fighting the greatest all over the world.
The greatest, right? So, and then I had, in order to do that, then the guys that had the winning records, the ones that had the best records, were then placed in the tournament.
Okay.
So you were fighting now in the tournament the best of the best,
right,
in order to win that tournament. And so for me, I think that was a stretch of time where I was at my best.
You were just untouchable.
Yes.
Tell me about your rivalry with Royce Gracie. What do you remember about
Disappointing.
That? Okay.
It really is. It's one thing.
You got him though.
No, I didn't. It's a hole. There's a hole there.
Okay.
There's a disappointment there, and not just for myself, but for the fans.
Okay.
Because I felt like from the beginning of this rivalry with me and Royce Gracie, there was always trickery. There was never straightforward. There was always something that they tried to pull behind the scenes. And the reason was because I was the only one that knew submissions. I was quick, I was strong, and I knew how to handle them. The first fight was a little bit different because I didn't understand the gi. But shortly after that, I understood it, and that's when I beat him up.
Yeah.
Because I got to understand. But in the first fight, they took away my wrestling shoes. Now, I've been fighting for 2.5 years with wrestling shoes on.
Yeah.
So now I go to this event, no holds barred, anything goes, and they come to us at the rules meeting and tell us, some of the fighters, they can't wear boxing gloves, which Art Jimerson did. They can't wear shin guards, and I couldn't wear my wrestling shoes. And I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was no holds barred. Anything goes. And of course, we didn't understand the gi at the time. To think that, wait a minute, if my shoes are a weapon, isn't that gi a weapon? Yeah. Which I didn't understand it enough.
Right.
But because I was cocky, because I thought that there's no one there that could beat me, I just blew it off.
Figured I would need it.
Yeah, I'm gonna beat them all anyways, right?
Yeah.
When I get in the ring, I slipped all over the place. I had no traction. Even when I fought Patrick Smith, when I tried to take him down, I had to spin him to get him to the ground because my feet were slipping.
You're just not used to it. You haven't trained for that.
My speed wasn't there. The takedowns, the leverage of being able to move into leg locks and submissions, it wasn't there. I was slipping.
Yeah.
And so once I finished that fight, I started like, uh-oh. I mean, it's like, this is going to be a little bit harder than I thought.
Yeah.
Because I was slipping and I didn't get the grip. And then so that fight happened, right? So I didn't complain about it, whatever. I said, I'm third best here tonight, whatever, 2 best are in the finals. I'll move on and I'll get another shot. Hopefully I'll get another shot. Well, I was popular enough after that and people really liked me that, Bob Myers brought me back. He said, yeah, we'll bring you back. So we come back for the second fight. Now, there's always been a time limit. There's never been anything but, not always, there was never a time limit, right? So we're going into this next fight with Royce. So I get there, and it's like 2 days or the day before the fight, I don't remember the exact time on that. We sit down with a group of people, including Bob Meyerowitz, and also the promotional people, and they're saying, we're gonna add a time limit. And I was like, what? I was like, I trained for a 2-hour fight. My strategy was to wear him out. I didn't want to finish him. I didn't want to take any chances. I was going to beat his body. I was going to wear him down till his legs dropped, and then I was going to submit him. If it took me 3 hours to do it, then so be it.
Yeah.
Well, they came back and told us there was going to be a 30-minute time limit, and I was like, what do you mean a 30-minute time limit? I said, there's supposed to be no time limit. So, well, because of the block of time and the pay-per-view, and I was like, well, we've already been doing it. It's like, yeah, but it's just better for entertainment-wise. And I understand it now.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I go in and fight him the second time. And I couldn't change my game plan. I had to stick to my game plan.
Of course, you've been training it.
This is what I've been doing.
Right.
It's too soon, right? It's too close to the fight. So I go in there, and if anybody has seen the fight, I literally sat in his wheelhouse, like in his guard, and pounded on him for 30 minutes, blasted him, body shots, head shots, elbows, headbutts, and his legs were starting to drop. He was starting to get weak. Time runs up. Oh well. I felt pretty good about it. I've been training 2.5 years. He's been training his whole life with 50 years of experience behind him. I was about 200 pounds. He was 185 pounds. I was thinking, you know what? It's an improvement for me. I'm getting there. I dominated him. So I get up and I'm like, man, I'm disappointed a little bit, but I'm okay. I was like, okay, I dominated him, but I know I'm going to get better.
Yeah.
And I hear Horian come from the crowd. 3 more minutes, 3 more minutes. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, I don't know what fight he's watching because he was getting killed, but okay, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
And so I remember Hickson in his corner looking over at Horian going, like, what are you doing? And he's like, 3 more minutes. And he's saying, 3 more minutes, telling him 3 more minutes. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Okay, all right. I'm a little bit shocked because this is supposed to be a sanctioned event. It's like the contract says 30 minutes. You guys told me there was only 30 minutes.
Right.
And you're coming into the fight now, the promoter, which was Horian, saying 3 more minutes. I was like, I'm not against it, but it's a little bit odd.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, let's do it. So that 3 minutes, he comes in, and that's when I catch him with the right hand. Boom. Blew his eye up. Immediately took him down, he pulls guard, and I start pounding on him. Boom, boom, boom. And again, with Royce or any of the brothers there, you do not overcommit, no matter how tired they are, because you will get caught.
Yeah.
So I kept that in the back of my mind as I was still pounding him and blasting his eye, headbutting him and working him, and he was dead. I mean, he was really starting to get exhausted, and I was starting to feel stronger and stronger. But I didn't want to overcommit. I wanted to make sure that he was done.
Right.
Time runs up. 3 minutes, done. It went fast, too. I was like, man, I felt really good now because he got up and he was bad.
It was way worse.
Like, boom. I got to give him credit, man. He's a tough kid.
Yeah.
He gets up and his face is all messed up, and it was like I'm walking around with a little bit of a badge on me. I'm like, yeah, that's right. And all of a sudden, here comes Horian. 3 more minutes, 3 more minutes, and I was like, yes, 3 more minutes.
He
and
did
I was
it
like,
again?
Yeah, 3 more minutes. And so the corner looks over again at him, and they're shaking their heads like this because they're picking him up off the ground. And they're like, no, 3 more minutes. And I was like, I ain't saying no. So we did 3 more minutes. I took him down, started blasting him again. And again, the caution's there, waiting for his legs to completely drop. And I'm pounding on him, and his legs are dropping. And just as he starts, his legs drop, and I start to climb on top of him, time runs up. So the time runs up, and so I get up again, and I'm listening for 3 more minutes.
Now
he's laying on the ground. They had to come in and pick him up off the mat. They carried him out of the ring.
Wow.
I'm looking on the ground, and I'm like, 3 more minutes, come on. And the only reason why Hornian didn't come out of the crowd and say 3 more minutes, because he never got off the mat. They came in and picked him up off the mat.
Wow.
So I stood over and said, hey, 3 more minutes. Of course, I didn't get the 3 minutes, but it was like, how come I don't get to call 3 more minutes?
You're the only one whose vote doesn't count.
Yeah, it didn't count. So, and that's kind of been the rivalry. Even in this last one, the last fight that we did, strategy was going to cut the ring off. I knew he was going to be excited, and because he didn't have it anymore. So I was going to cut the ring off. He's going to get excited, throw all these wild punches, and just block him, move, stick him, bang, pressure him. And then when he slows down, I'll finish him.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. He got all squirrely, cut the ring off. He grabs me, boom, I catch him with the knee. All of a sudden, I feel, wham! I take this shot in the groin, and I got a steel cup on. And I take for a minute, and all of a sudden, it just like got worse and worse, and I'm trying to fight it.
Creeps up on you.
Yeah, and it's just all of a sudden, my breath is gone, and I dropped. I turned around and just turned like this, like away, and it was taking my breath away. And so he grabs me and pulls me to the ground, and he starts punching me. Well, I'm pushing my cup down, right, because it's not where it needs to be. Right. So I'm shoving my cup down. He's on top of me, pounding me in the head, and I'm looking up at the referee saying, he knee me in the groin. And he's hitting me in the head, right? And I'm just talking right through it like he's not, like it's a baby and my kids are on top of me or something. I'm like, hey, he hit me in the head. He's like, wham, 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 wham. I said, you kicked me in the nuts, man. Referee gets up, and I'm thinking, okay, well, at least we'll get a restart. I'll get my 5 minutes, and we'll start again. They called the fight. Wow. It was like, you didn't see that?
It was probably because you were putting your cup down instead of keeping your guard up.
Well, when I pushed my cup down, well, what happened was the referee's on that side, and when he kneed me, he didn't see the knee. So when I went down, when he jumped on, he started punching me. He's thinking, but I'm yelling at him, hey, he kneed me in the nuts. And he's like, not hearing me. And they stopped the fight, and then they played it on the Megatron, and it was like, because the announcer, when it first happened, because of the TV, they didn't see it either. Yeah. And so the announcer was saying, I don't know, I didn't see anything there. And then they did the replay, and all of a sudden the crowd went, and they said, boo, and they didn't change it. Like even when I went to the commission and I showed them even the doctor's report, and then showed him the video, and still they didn't change it.
Wow.
So that's kind of when, with that Gracie rivalry, that's empty spot, that spot where I feel unsatisfied. Yeah. Because it seemed like every single time,
there was always something.
There was always something that was being done behind the scenes.
Wow. Well, man, I'll tell you right now, I don't think that's what people remember you.
Well, I hope not.
No. I mean, the things that, as soon as I heard your name, you were going to be here, the first thing you think of is one of the greatest of all time, right? You just know that you're a legend in what you do. And tell me about Lions Den.
Yeah, that goes back to when I was actually training and trying to find guys to train with, and no one wanted me to punch them or take them down when they're fighters. And so I had to figure out a way that I could actually stay home and still be able to train. So I started going out and getting different people that had already started hearing about me fight. And I opened up a little gym, and I started bringing different guys in. Vernon was one of them. There was another kid that came in. And so I just started having guys and starting to hear about it, start to come in. And I started teaching them a little bit. Some of them had karate backgrounds, some had wrestling backgrounds. So I got to really use them because they were training with me now. So I could actually say, hey, shoot on me, I'll strike at you, kick at me, and I'll take you down. So I had guys that were actually going to be able to work with me. Well, it started to develop where these guys started to get pretty good. And so I felt like, well, I'm going to open another gym because it's getting big, so open a bigger gym. And then more people came. Then I started doing tryouts because I was like, wow, it's working. I'm going to start telling people, come over, we'll do tryouts. Right. So then I started getting more people, and so I said, you know what, now it's like, it's kind of turned into a gym. Yeah. And I remember the exact time I was sitting upstairs, and I was sitting on my couch, and I was watching the Animal Planet channel. Yeah. And the lions came on. And I remember watching this lion grab this antelope, and it jumped on its back, and its claws went in like a choke, like whoom. And then his legs came up on the back of the animal, and it pulled it down like into a guard. Right. And then chomped down on its neck, and then literally rolled up on top and then killed the prey. And I was like, king of the jungle, lion's den. First I started out with lions, and I was like, that sounds generic, right? So then I came up, somebody says, hey, how about den? It's their home. And I was like, that's it, lion's den.
That's cool.
So really it came from watching the Animal Planet channel, and the way the lions hunted, and the way they would actually attack their prey, and the way they got their claws in and pulled them down into, almost like into their guard.
Yeah.
And that's really where I came up with it.
That's cool. That's awesome, man. Yeah. Look, you have had such an incredible career. You know, there's people that are killing themselves to be able to achieve half the success you've been able to achieve. I know I'm extremely impressed and honored to be able to sit down here with you and share your story, not just with everyone in the room, but also everyone in the world. Hopefully there's a few things here that some people haven't heard, they get to hear for the first time. That'd be really cool. Right. I'd love to have you back. I know now you are in this world. We are actually here at a conference. That's kind of where we met, and it's this entrepreneur conference, and now we're getting into the whole new phase of Ken Shamrock, the businessman.
Blazing the trail.
Blazing the trail. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Truly the greatest of all time. Thanks so much.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel or find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever your favorite place to listen to podcasts might be. And if you really like this episode, please leave a review for us on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.